For a lot of us, the toys were the entry point. I remember grabbing every figure I could, random background characters packed with blasters, shields, or whatever wild accessory Hasbro could dream up. These weren't just toys, they were world builders. They filled in the blanks between movies, gave us new stories, and kept the galaxy alive on our bedroom floors. Man, I was obsessed with that Plo Koon figure with the double lightsaber gauntlet. I'm still thinking about that to this day. Like, we were just having fun with figures back then. But now, Hasbro has shifted to a collector focused mindset, which honestly makes sense. The kids who grew up with Star Wars are now adults, many with disposable income and nostalgia to burn, but we could still use a lightsaber gauntlet here and there. Their two biggest lines now promise premium collectibles, highly detailed figures that should justify the rising prices. And if you ask Hasbro, it's all about quality, better sculpting, deeper research, and top tier presentation. But the reality is, it's recycled parts, fewer accessories, higher cost, and a disconnect with fans. It doesn't come any clearer than with HasLab. Today, we're going to be exploring one of the failed Black Series projects, being the HasLab Rancor. Now, a little backstory for vintage collection collectors like myself. The Black Series line is Hasbro's larger scale toy line. They're going to be 6-inch figures, and this was going to be their first HasLab. Now, I feel vehicles are kind of hard to do for 6-inch just because they're so big. So, a dream HasLab project is just a big figure, and a 6-inch Rancor sounds perfect on paper. Now, the base project, they did a good job of showing it off. It was fully articulated, massive, had a few features that made it ideal for recreating iconic movie scenes. It made it very posable. Now, would there later be controversy about it tipping over or it not being stable? Yes, but at the end of the day, it's a giant figure. Who doesn't love just a bunch of plastic? But an item like this doesn't just sell. Now we have to take it as a HasLab project. What are the tiers? What are we going to look forward to? And with these crowdfunding models, it's exciting because it builds hype. The more people that back it, the more extras that get unlocked, and sometimes it helps justify the price. This project was definitely gonna need it because some fans felt it was overpriced. They had an initial launch of 350, but there was hope that the full package would all come together. Surely Hasbro's secret reveals will drive sales so high, the forest of Dathomir will be repopulated with Rancors. The first tier dropped and it was an underwhelming miss for the team. Instead of something new or meaningful, Hasbro revealed a repackaged figure with a new card back and a coin. Now, a Gamorrean guard is very important to a Rancor display, but to just repackage a figure that was already released is kind of lazy. This is a 350 crowdfunded project marketed towards the most dedicated fans. It needs to feel like a reward. Now, I feel the future tiers could have salvaged this one because honestly, I don't mind it. I don't mind having a Gamorrean guard with 3 accessories. I mean, I can have them all kitted out with all the axes and everything. So I'm kind of liking this one. But I can understand how fans had still sour taste in their mouth. They still were trying to swallow that 350 pill. So let's just hope that the tiers get better from here. And boy, did the second tier destroy all hope. They gave fans a cardboard backdrop and some plastic bones. Hasbro really thought collectors of the Black Series, their more expensive premium line, were going to get excited over a cardboard display piece. Maybe us vintage collection collectors mess with that kind of thing coming from the Death Star, but Black Series ain't about that life. I remember the outrage when this tier dropped, and I don't collect Black Series. I have never owned a Black Series figure, but the outrage from this tier is what inspired me to make this video. The HasLab business model has tiers that offer display stands, exclusive figures, giant accessories, even full-blown Transformers as a tier. But Hasbro thought it'd be fun to toss in some cardboard and call it a day. This was the second fumble by Hasbro, and now the later tiers had to do a lot of heavy lifting, not just to get the project funded, but to convince fans to back it all the way to those higher unlocks. And keep in mind, by the time this second tier was revealed, the Rancor project hadn't even funded yet. They still were waiting for the hype to get them into it. Now, their next tier was a Salacious B. Crumb, and it was just underwhelming. Carded, no accessories, just him there, just plotted. And then a Jedi Luke, but at this point, if you don't have a Jedi Luke in your collection, what are you doing? What are you doing? You shouldn't be buying the Rancor, you should be buying a Luke. And it was already slated for a solo release in the future anyways. The day they were announced, the project effectively died. An uproar filled the community. The Rancor itself was great, but for the high price it was being sold at, combined with repacks and repaints plaguing the campaign, it would have been better just release the Rancor on its own at a lower price point. The two obvious picks for tiers or just to include weren't even mentioned, and that's something fans kept reminding Hasbro in comment sections all around the internet. Malakili, the Rancor keeper, he had never even been in Black Series, and he was an afterthought. And Ula, the Rancor's first victim, would have fit the theming perfectly. Once all the tiers were revealed, the backlash Hasbro was getting made them get desperate. For the first time, it was looking like one of their strongest IPs was not going to fund, and they were really putting everything into this HasLab. For it being a crowdfunded event, they were showing us models, paint applications. They really wanted this to fund, and in a desperate attempt, they listened to the fans. Hasbro added Malakili to the project, but it wasn't enough to save it. The exclusive that many had wanted from the start would now die with the campaign. Hasbro confirmed that Malakili would only be released if the project funded, adding salt to the wound. Fans who had wanted the figure even before the project was announced felt like it was being held hostage behind a dying campaign that many knew either wouldn't fund or would barely scrape by. If it didn't barely fund, the figure's aftermarket price would skyrocket, turning the Rancor into a scalper's dream. At that point in the funding process, it was no longer a consumer priced product. With no stretch goals unlocked, it became a desperate buy, driven either by fear of missing out or by those hoping to capitalize on its scarcity. The HasLab Rancor ended on November 19th, 2021, with just 8,500 backers, short of the 9,000 needed to fund. It became the first failed Star Wars HasLab, marked by multiple major missteps in its planning and execution. The failure was an embarrassment for the Black Series team and showed what happens when you don't take the time to learn what fans actually want. Surely Hasbro wouldn't make that mistake again in their next HasLab project. Anyways, thanks for joining me in this story. Be sure to like and subscribe and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to thank you guys for the 20 subscribers. I've just had a great time talking about toys, and the fact that 20 of you want to keep listening to me, I really appreciate you guys.